I invite you to join me in toning the name of our country. Some of you may remember that last year at this time, we did this practice. It is a practice that comes from the tradition of sacred etymological analysis. As a student of Sanskrit, which is the basis of our Indo-European language, I think we can derive the true meaning of a word by studying the sound roots and by interpreting it through the many languages of the world. And one of the ways that we do this is by simply listening to the root sounds as we tone them together. And then I'm going to give you a little translation. So, America is a beautiful word. And we can give it this arrangement, America, or we can give it America. They're slightly different, but let's do the first. So join me in the sound of ah. Together. And the sound of myrrh. And and ka. America. Ah. You may have noticed that sound vibrates in your heart. Ah. The breath, air. And myrrh, the sound of water, the word for sea in many languages. E, the self, the I am, that part of us that sometimes gets interpreted as yes. And ka, the creative life energy, the soil, the earth, the ground, that which inhabits the body in this life. America is a beautiful word. If we were to tone it the other way and use the word Mary, let's tone that word together. Mary. That would be a root word for the beloved in many languages, for the divine feminine. So America, putting all those tones together, is a magnificent and deeply meaningful word. In fact, America in Mandarin Chinese literally means beautiful country. So who are we? What are we? Why are we here? Those of us that are here in this country. As our nation faces a pandemic and social and political unrest and economic uncertainty, these are very important questions to contemplate. If you believe, as some people do, that there's nothing beyond the physical, that you're just a bag of bones, and when you die, that's it, there isn't much meaning beyond the material goods that you get while you're here. But if you found your way to unity, you're at least open to the possibility that we're more than what's between our hats and our boots. We are multi-dimensional beings with a multiplicity of intelligences yet to be honed and developed. To quote a great line from Jimmy Stewart in the film Anatomy of a Murder, people aren't just one thing. A person can be a good father, a compulsive liar, cheat on his wife, be a kind and generous community member, an excellent employer, and a sexual predator. A person can excel in school, be at the top of her class, be a neglectful mother, and a drug addict. A person can go to church every Sunday, cheat on their taxes, never give a dime to charity, make a ton of money in business, and not pay their employees a decent wage. A person can be a great athlete, a devoted husband, and want to be a kind person, but have the emotional stability and the emotional intelligence of a fruit fly. A person can be an accomplished musician and not be able to balance their own checkbook. A person can be an excellent surgeon and not be able to confidently carry on a conversation with someone in a social setting. We are a multiplicity of intelligences. And it's time for us to face this, to look at it, to stop denying it, and to stop promoting a one-dimensionality of humanity. So I'm giving you a glimpse today into one of our founding fathers. I know that you have been hearing some things about others of our founding fathers that, we're shaken to our core because this person we think is a hero now is not a hero because of some blemish in their character or something they thought hundreds of years ago that now we're terribly bereft about. And we haven't developed the intellectual understanding for the multiplicity of intelligences that has always been there. And so I give you some insight today into the multiplicity of Benjamin Franklin, who certainly is a multifaceted case in point for us to examine today. Many of our founders, many of the people that penned the Declaration of Independence suffered greatly. Some of them died. Some of them had their homes ransacked, their families killed. They knew that signing that document could mean the loss of their lives, that they would be sought after. And many of them did lose everything. But not Benjamin Franklin. Franklin went to France, and in his lighthearted and inquisitive manner, he was very popular socially. He was curious, never took himself too seriously. They made fun of him as the lightning man, and he capitalized on that. He knew that the French had a conception of Americans as rustic frontiersmen, and although he was not, he playfully dressed as one, a plain man with a fur hat. And this soon became his trademark, and he appeared in countless French portraits and medallions, and women became enamored with him and imitated him with oversized wigs and a style called the coiffure a la Franklin. Frankly, Franklin was magnetic and charming. Franklin spent his years later in his life as an abolitionist. He developed his moral and ethical intelligence over time. He was a scientist and a lifelong learner. And he influenced the lives of everyone around him in the direction of equality and justice, even in his will. Franklin owned 2 slaves during his lifetime, Both of them were his personal household servants. And by his old age, he came to view slavery as the most vile institution that ran counter to the principles of America. And he became the president of the Pennsylvania Abolitionist Society in 1787. He petitioned Congress to end slavery his whole life. And he kept up the fight, including a provision in his will that required his daughter and son-in-law to free their slaves to get their inheritance. Franklin also, like a wise grandfather, left Boston and Philadelphia an unusual gift in his will. He used his financial wisdom to bequeath them prosperity for many generations to come. When he died in April 1790, he willed 2,000 pounds sterling to his birthplace, Boston, and his adopted home, Philadelphia. But the money was restricted for the first 100 years. It was placed in a trust, and only a portion of it could be used, and only as loans to local tradespeople. A portion then could be spent, but most would remain off limits for another 100 years, at which point, if the cities saw fit, they could use it. Boston and Philadelphia followed Franklin's wishes, and by 1990, their funds were worth $4.5 million and $2 million, respectively. The two towns have since used the windfall to help finance the Franklin Institute of Philadelphia and the Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology in Boston. Franklin was also an athlete. He developed his athletic skills and is an inducted member of the International Swimming Hall of Fame. He had a lifelong love of swimming and developed many different strokes. While living in England in the 1720s, people were so impressed at the many different strokes he used swimming in the Thames that they offered to help him open a swimming school, but he declined, thankfully for us. But all his life, he remained a proponent of swimming instruction for everyone. So Franklin's legacy is more than a lightning guy. And for us, looking at anyone's multifaceted, multidimensional life, it's important to look at the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, musical, social, kinesthetic intelligences, and to forgive ourselves and everyone else for what we don't yet have, for what we can't yet know. We're influenced by family, region, school, our athletic experiences, our religions, politics, state, country, the amount of television exposure and internet and game exposure we have, our genetic predispositions, our habitual states of mind, and the habitual states of mind of those who we surround ourselves with. All of these form our personality. That's who we think we are in this lifetime. The great psychologist Erik Erikson said the person that we were, the person we are, and the person we're becoming are all smooth continuations of the person that we must be in the face of these realities that have been ours. Yet, from a spiritual point of view, we are more than the realities that can be seen and named. We are individualities in an interconnected universe, and we can tap in to the true intelligence of the universe. There is a part of us, in Lessons in Truth, Emily Cady calls this our individuality, our God self, our soul, which is unique and imperishable. It can be brighter, stronger, or dimly lit, but it's always in us, always with us, and it shines through us. Like people, countries aren't just one thing. America is a great country with an honorable vision. And America is a country that was founded on the premise of white supremacy, misogyny, and the mistreatment of women and children. America was built with the sweat, the blood, the intelligence, the time, and the skill of slaves, people of color, women and children forced to work, who were considered to be property of white men. The idea of this supremacy of white men is so ingrained in our society. It's so visually ingrained everywhere we look. I was deeply moved yesterday that our president and some of our people chose to have a fireworks celebration in front of the sacred mountain of the Agala Sioux that's carved into it. These men who mass murdered Native people without even asking permission to come on their land, which was in violation one more time of a treaty with the indigenous people, simply just asked to come. We have built monuments and statues and carved into mountains this idea of violence being heroic. But this does not represent the best of Americans' vision, of Americans' virtues, or of Americans' values. And today, now, it is the time to create a new vision for our people and to truly dedicate ourselves to life, to liberty, and to the pursuit of happiness for all people and all life on earth. If Benjamin Franklin, hundreds of years ago, could hone his moral intelligence, certainly today we can do the same. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people of all colors and all creeds and all ethnic groups and all genders and all ages have inalienable rights. There's no aliens. We are one human family, and everyone is created in the image and likeness of God. Everyone is endowed by their Creator with the same potentialities. And it's no one's right to quash them. And people everywhere on earth are now realizing as never before that the well-being of the world rests with its inhabitants, not with religious dogma, not with politicians. The destiny of America is in the hands of the people, and it has always been. The real object of life, from a spiritual point of view, certainly, from a unity point of view, certainly, is not simply making money, becoming famous, building tall buildings, and owning a lot of stuff. But it's the building of our characters, the bringing forth of our potentialities that exist in every single soul. On all levels and in all dimensions, we continue to evolve as a human species. You are unique in all the world. You are unique spiritually. You are an individuality. There's no other soul exactly like you in this entire universe. What will you leave? The collective memory of your being on this earth. There's something else to consider also beyond the human family. And they say in Sanskrit, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. It's an ancient mantra. And it means earth is the family. We are all inextricably linked. All one. Seamless tapestry of planet Earth. Think about it. People have been hung for worshiping the sun. But can you live without it? If the sun did not shine, we would freeze to death. There are people in our community who don't believe that trees are alive. Could we live without them? We would no longer breathe. And it's evident today that the loss of trees is bringing us much disease, because trees have so much more to do with medicine on this earth than any of us know. We're just glimpsing what happens underneath the earth and the capacity of trees to send medicine miles and miles away to help other living plants that are our medicine to survive. We have to look deeply as individualities, what's true in our soul, and be a stand for that, or we are nothing. We have to stand and look and deeply assess what is coming forth from the soul of our nation today. What is all of this about? The coronavirus, the social distress, the killings, the violence. What we see from a spiritual point of view is a mirror. And it might not be pretty, but if we don't look at it honestly, we will never grow up. Our president, our politicians, our news, our media is a reflection of who we think we really are, what we value, what we have been thinking. It's right there. Look at it. It's important to see it, to acknowledge it, to see it clearly, to stop lying to ourselves, to face the truth. When we can face it, then we can forgive it. Then we can move beyond it. Then we can dismantle what is so systemically destroying the very fabric of the soul of this nation. And take the necessary steps so that the current system of injustice and inequality and instability can transform into the true vision of what it means to be American. Frederick Douglas, years ago, was asked to give a speech on the 4th of July. It's quite a famous speech. I think one of the titles of it is, "What's the 4th of July to a slave?" And in that speech, he said, "You have no right to wear out and waste the hard-earned fame of your fathers to cover your indolence." In other words, put feet to your prayers, put your prayers to work, do something. Howard Thurman, who was a Black spiritual leader, he was Man of the Year on the cover of Time magazine in the 40s. He was funded by people like Eleanor Roosevelt to begin a ministry called the First Church for the Fellowship of All People in San Francisco. And in the mortgage burning ceremony in 1952, he said this: "The social structure, the economic order, the world of nature, all these apparently mindless forces in the world repeat one thing over and over. This is a universe. This is a universe. This is a universe." Over and over. Only man says it isn't. And he builds his little shelter, raises his little wall, builds his little altar, worships his little God, organizes the resources of his little life to defend his little barrier, and he can't do it. Howard Thurman said, "It is our faith that in the presence of God, with his dream of order, there's neither male or female, white or black, Gentile nor Jew, Protestant nor Catholic, Hindu nor Buddhist nor Muslim, but a human spirit, stripped to the literal substance of itself. And whenever man has the scent of eternal unity, that's the real meaning of unity, universe, universal, whenever man has the scent of the eternal unity in his spirit, he hunts for it. In his home, in his work, among his friends, in his pleasures, and on all levels of his being." So my prayer for you, for all of us, is that we continue to be on the hunt. And that America become the magnificent and deeply meaningful outpicturing of that word. That we, together as individualities, join our strength to make America the more beautiful country we know it can be, with honesty, compassion, love, and justice for all of us, and honoring and caring for the earth and all living beings. Happy Interdependence Day, everyone.